supply chain, consulting, warehouse operations, market share, revenue, material handling, sales, transportation.
It's the end of the week. It's the end of the week. It's the end of the week. It's the end.
All right. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
It's the end of the week. It's fun to have you in Montreal.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. How is it to come back to your hometown?
Well, it's good because the weather's good. I'm lucky that we had pretty nice week for May. There's a lot of construction, which is fun, but no, super happy to come to Montreal.
Any different than LA, the construction?
Yeah.
LA's good.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, compared to here. Yeah.
Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know who Jeff is a partner. Went from intern to partner with us for a long time, and manages the LA office. All right. So today we thought that we could, since you're managing the LA office, that we could tackle this topic. What and the LA office actually started, and you weren't around. Well, you were at LID, but you weren't in LA. Anything
Exactly.
you want to maybe inform or people how this came about?
Yeah, so right around when I started at LID as an analyst, we started working with a company called Cheft. Cheft, formerly a custom meal kit company based in LA. They were building out new facilities, new capabilities, new channels, and just needed a lot of work from the consulting side. They were also working with our Solo Chain team. So I was working on that project pretty much full time for a couple of years, and that was probably 2015, 2016, 2017. So we were sending a lot of people to LA. There's, as everyone knows, there's a huge population there. There's certain industries that are really, really big in LA, and obviously there's a lot of food that's grown in LA. So right around that time, Charles was thinking about opening an office there, and in 2018 pulled the trigger on that, and that initiative was led by new hire at the time, Danny Wang, and Sean, when Sean came over to LID. So that was sort of how it started, but we were there a lot. There was an opportunity, and I think especially in supply chain and operations, being in the market, and I'm sure this applies everywhere, but being in the market and being able to go on site and look at the racks and say something intelligent and speak to operations people face to face, I think it holds a lot of weight. So that's just kind of what led to the LA office.
Yeah, and you said, being on the West Coast, we had this idea that then it also extend the number of hours that an office can cover. But
right.
You said, Sean joined, but there's not only Sean, right? You talk about Chef, but something happened,
right? And
not only Sean joined, but then we had Ben.
Yep.
We had Perry.
Yeah.
We had, I think, Steven, who's not with us anymore. We've got Terrence.
Yep.
So something happened at Chef, obviously.
Yeah, so Chef, I think they had a really good concept, but eventually sort of ran out of runway. And what ended up happening was they, went bankrupt. And we'd been working with all these great people at Chef. So part of the LA, initiative was, we have these, we've always known we needed to have an office in the U.S. We have all these great talented people that we know really well here. This is a good opportunity, and I think LID's done a good job of identifying these opportunities that might be risks, but they're also huge opportunities for the business, and we've acted on them, and we've done a good job of coming out of it with a really good product and just amazing talent. Yeah.
And then when did you move there?
So I moved to LA almost 2 years ago exactly. So I left in April 2021. So the background on that is Sean moved to Montreal. There was sort of a need for somebody to play that role of running the office in LA. And during COVID, I took a few business trips where I just kind of set up shop in the U.S. so I wouldn't have to worry about the border. And Charles and I had some back and forth, and I wasn't particularly tied to Montreal for personal reasons. Sort of always wanted to move to the U.S., so that was a great opportunity for me. Made up my mind before COVID that I was willing to do that. And with the visa process and the border closing, that obviously took a while. But when that finally wrapped up, which was like March 2021, I was pretty much ready to move. There's still a lot of turbulence at the border, so I just left. I had a bike box and a hockey bag, flew to Detroit, went to go visit a client in Delphos, Ohio, which is not a place that you want to go to, and then slowly made my way to LA. And now it's been about 2 years that I've been in the office there, with, of course, the help of the famous Danny Wang. Now that office is, we got a pretty good presence there. Mm-hmm. It's been a lot of fun. Hired a lot of new people, and yeah.
Moved a lot, eh? Multiple offices also?
Yeah, so we sort of, the first LA office was in Manhattan Beach, which was close to where Chef was. And then, one of the challenges with the new office is that you have the low head count. You might grow really quickly. You might stagnate for a few months. So we turned to WeWork. And that was our first experience with WeWork, was in LA. And WeWork has had their own troubles, and we've kind of bounced around for various reasons. And right now we're in a great building in Century City that have about capacity for, let's say, 15 people, which meets our need right now. But yeah, I think we've been in 5 or 6 different buildings in LA. Yeah,
that's the most addresses that any office ever had at Lid. Okay, so. What's special? You touched on it a little bit about the food, but anything that you do over there, not necessarily in the nature of the project, but the types of clients that we find over there.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of food being grown there, of course. So that's a huge opportunity. I think that we haven't even capitalized on as much as we can, but. One of our longtime clients, Southwest Traders, is in California, so we can serve them a lot more closely from LA. So there's a few different food service guys. I think one of the things that people don't think about with LA is that it is really close to one of the major ports, the Long Beach port. So if you're starting a brand, like a fashion brand, and you're importing from overseas, LA is somewhat of a hub for that kind of thing. So there's a lot of companies that are based in LA, sort of tech focused, but they're not, Silicon Valley companies that you can find in LA. And that's sort of from the project perspective. If you think about how that fits into Lid, our NetSuite practice is based in LA. Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with a company in the middle market and they're based in LA, you're sort of expecting them to say they're running NetSuite. Mm-hmm. It's surprising to hear that they're not. So, there's a huge office for NetSuite in Santa Monica. There's a lot of those businesses there that are using that software. So it's a good place for us to sink our teeth in and have a lot of local business. The other interesting thing about LA, which is not really related to customers, but just the geography. And I didn't quite realize, I sort of knew this, but I didn't quite realize it till I moved there, was it's ginormous.
It's huge.
So if you think about Montreal, LA is 20x the size, and then you have many, many people who live outside of LA County. So when you're trying to get together as a team, or you're trying to place an office, or you're trying to, even schedule a meeting with a client, mm-hmm. you have to consider things that you wouldn't even think about in Montreal. We have people who are working for Lid in LA that live like over 100 kilometers
apart,
60 miles apart. I think it might be even higher than that. But so you think about in Montreal, it's like, hey guys, we're gonna go bowling, right? We're going in NDG. It's 3. People thought that was far. That's 4 kilometers away. You know, in LA, it's a lot more challenging, and you have to be, you have to be sympathetic to that when you're trying to kind of plan things and build up a culture like you have in the Montreal office. The geography is obviously going to play a factor. Like if we had 2 people who lived in Ottawa, and half our team lived in Saint Lazare, it would be a different story when you start thinking about how the office operates.
Operates. Yeah, I mean it's such a big city.
Yeah.
For me, I remember, for those who have never been there, as you land or as you take off, it's incredible how fast.
Yeah.
How fast it is. 8-lane highways and things like that are not things you see over here. Larger than Canada, population, largest state.
Yeah.
And very dry. Very, very dry too. But not this year, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of fun because you're going from like probably some of the most extreme weather in North America to, in a habitable place like Montreal, to LA, where like if it's like 14 Celsius, you have people in like Canada Goose jackets walking their dogs, and I'm like in shorts. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. But it was a very rainy winter, and to the point where I was like, well, I didn't sign up for this. Like, what?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be sunny every day. But no, it's really beautiful now because you have all this greenery around where it ends up getting to kind of deserty by midsummer, but we're enjoying that right now. One of the things that's also undervalued about LA is just how beautiful and how much nature there is and how much good hiking. And I hope everyone knows that I'm a big cyclist, so I have definitely been taking advantage of that. But there's really something for everyone in LA. Like people say, oh, like LA, it's like Hollywood. No, that's one part of it, but that's not a place that I go very often. I'm often more out kind of like in Malibu in the mountains where there's not a lot of people. Like you can get to kind of Deadsville pretty quickly, and that's one of the huge bonuses for me.
And where would the industries be located? Like in comparison to either like Santa Monica, where a lot of people like to go, or downtown? Like, is that a problem also to go and visit? You were talking about just organized visits for clients.
Yeah, so client visits, like there's a few places, City of Industry, Carson, Gardena, sort of inland of where you would go if you're going on vacation. Those ones that I'm talking about now aren't that far. So if I'm doing analogies here to Montreal, like Ville Saint Laurent, in Toronto, like think like Brampton, like you're not going that far. But what makes LA different is that then you have places that are, in traffic 2.5-3 hours out of the city.
That's insane.
And it's still better than flying, but the ground you have to cover is crazy. And another thing is that it's not like no one lives there. Like you won't believe, you could drive from Santa Monica Pier to the state of Arizona and you could be in traffic the whole way, and the number of city signs you're going to see that are greater than 100,000 people or 50,000 people, like you won't believe. Like you could just make up a name of a town, type it in on Google and write CA, and it exists, and there's probably 40,000 people there. So there's just so many people everywhere.
Oh my God. Also, California, a lot of hippies, right? A lot of weird people, but a lot of hippies, which in supply chain, which brings me to the topic of sustainability, right?
Yeah.
You hear a lot of
definitely
sustainable. Do you think it originates from areas such as
I think
avocado lovers?
I think I think the state government has been kind of at the forefront for the USA in terms of creating regulations. There's like sustainability consulting is a thing in LA. It's a pretty serious thing. There's a firm called Burrow Happel that I've been talking with, and their sustainability practice. They're an engineering firm, sort of like us. We don't really compete with them for work. They do a lot more like civil architecture work than we do.
Mm-hmm.
But their team is based in LA, and they work with NBC and Disney and these big companies on sustainability initiatives. So they sort of say that the writing's on the wall with people making public and private targets that they're shooting for. I think in our market it's a bit slower because those companies don't really have they're not public most of the time, and they don't have the means.
The incentive.
The incentive's not quite there yet. So that company that I talked about, Burrow, they're based in Europe, and that's where most of their sustainability work is because there's a lot more regulation.
Mm-hmm.
But because they have that visibility, they're kind of putting the framework in place to do that same thing in the U.S., probably in California first when it comes about.
Yeah. So if you don't have the market or your customers' pressure to do something,
right,
it has to be through regulation, and they
exactly
they're at the forefront of it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is, so you have in the world of sustainability, like sustainability is such a broad term, but in sustainability consulting you have a bunch of different things you can do, right? Hey, I want to build a building that is like net zero emissions,
mm-hmm.
or I'm a public company and I'm required to tell everyone what my carbon emissions are.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is what would be our methodology to figure out the carbon emissions of a distributor are. And there's a lot of similarities between how we do our consulting work and what would need to happen for that. But when I do the math on how many hours it would take for us to do that, I say, like, no one's going to go for this. Like it's
no one's going to pay for it.
Yeah, it's going to be like a complicated network study. So think about like a 6-figure
mm-hmm.
proposal. So I've been talking to a couple different people about software systems that already do this kind of thing, and I think that's probably the solution in our market is like, hey, you can buy this software for, it's a recurring cost of $5,000-$10,000 a year,
mm-hmm.
and it'll prompt you for all the questions that you need to ask to get you to a point where you can say, hey, we did this is what our emissions are, and you're not paying an arm and a leg. You're pretty accurate. You're not 100%, but it's close enough. And really, the point of doing that first project is to say, well, as we grow, obviously our emissions are going to go up in the foreseeable future. But how are we? How is our growth and our revenue outpacing our carbon emissions? And what are we doing to? But it starts with tracking it, right? You can't really. How do you know? Like, oh, I want to do an electric fleet. Great, but how do you know how much that's going to help you before? Baselining.
Baselining.
So yeah, that like definitely see it more. It's not my top priority, but it's something that like we're focused on. We don't want to miss the boat on. We want to make sure that we can play our own role. And what I've heard from the people that I've talked to is like, oh yeah, most people aren't taking the supply chain approach here. They're coming from a government approach or a policy approach, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity there for us for sure.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, so David, let me ask you, what's your favorite thing about LA?
My favorite thing about LA is, well, last time I went was the fact that you're 3 hours later makes such that you wake up to kind of a lot of emails, but once this is out of the way, around 2 o'clock, email stops to come in, so then you can enjoy a little bit. Versus Europe, where you're having dinner and emails are still coming.
Yeah, I think that's more annoying.
That's fine in the work context, but
when I'm one of those people. If you know me well, like a notification, I can't not look at it. Like it's not happening.
So you always have your like little moon on your phone when I try to text you. Always like do not disturb.
I'll see it. Don't worry. Trust me. I'll see it.
I know you do, but
I'm super responsive. I hate missing messages. I hate being slow. I think it's one of the most important things and differentiates for us is just be super responsive. So obviously when I wake up, and I wake up early because
athlete.
My wife makes us go to bed at 9 p.m. That's for another podcast. But so we wake up at like 5:45 on the West Coast, and the first thing I do is look at my phone, and you know, this is not necessarily the easiest work environment. It can be stressful. You have a complaint. You have an employee who has a problem. Someone told you that, you know, your project's delayed. All these things, right? So it can kind of be like a panic-inducing environment to the point where I don't necessarily recommend what I'm doing, but like that's just the way that I've chosen to live my life.
Yeah.
But now, 2 years in, it's great because I can look, okay, this is a problem, this isn't a problem. I can respond to everyone, so everyone on the East Coast gets what they need from me at the start of their day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can take an hour, I can work out, you know, I can get to the office, like to get to the office early too. And then, it's, as you say, you know, there's a lot during the day. No one will respect your lunch hour, so I've just thrown that out the window. But in the afternoon, 2 options. One, you need to actually work on your own stuff, which I find I don't have enough time for. I'm always like trying to get everyone else what they need, you know, and always want to take the calls that I can. So in the afternoon, that's my time where it's like, okay, I really need to think about this on my own for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. That's 2 p.m. onwards. And of course, some days, 2 p.m. onwards, I'm like, I started at 6.
I'm
going
on my
biking.
bike.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah.
that's pretty cool. Well, I'm glad for you. I'm glad you're enjoying. I'm glad you're leading this. We're blessed, and I think you also have a client call coming up.
Yeah, I got a client call. Actually, it's with a Hawaiian company, and because I'm in Montreal now, 10:30 Island time, 4:30 Eastern. So
Which island are they on?
I think they're on Kopaka.
I don't think that's an island.
That's a city, maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't actually been to Hawaii yet, even though it's like not very far from me.
Yeah,
So
you should. It's pretty nice.
I gotta brush up on my Hawaiian geography, but I do know it's a 6-hour time difference. So
Yeah.
we gotta talk layouts.
It's really hard to come back from. I mean, on your body, because it's like 3 hours west of LA. But in terms of distance, like the the time zone?
Yeah.
Kind of goes like this to get Hawaii in, but it's way farther. Like if you were based only on distance, it should be
Shouldn't
like
be that bad.
6-7 hours.
Got it. Yeah.
But it's still worth the trip.
Interesting.
All right. Well, Jeff, thanks here. And it's unfortunate also we missed on an opportunity, you being in Montreal, but we didn't get a chance to any kind of feats of strength.
True. Yeah.
Because I don't know if you remember last time, you know,
Yeah.
a few years ago at the other office. Do you remember?
Yeah.
What happened?
You crushed me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy.
Thanks.
Have a good